Hey, Matt,
All
how's
right.
it going
Hello,
there
sir.
today?
I'm doing okay. Just getting through like everyone, right?
Exactly. Are you based in Los Angeles or did you have a hidden quarantine spot we don't know about?
I do have a hidden quarantine spot, luckily. I'm out in Palm Springs.
Yeah, that is out of the way, which is a good thing. But I assume you're keeping busy with promoting the new album from Cherie and all that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we just kind of, started that process. And yesterday I went on the Matt Pinfield show and starting to, I was supposed to come out with my book this month, too. I have a memoir that I worked on for a few years. And so we pushed that back. So that's been kind of the topic. And then, obviously the Cherie record, coming out now this month. I think we've got a captive audience, so no pun intended.
I was going to ask you about the book because I've been in touch with your book publicists and all that. Do you have a firm release date for the new plan on it, or is that still being worked out?
Well, the issue is, I want to travel on it a lot. So I was supposed to be in New York this week. I was going to do Seth Meyers and, a run of stuff. I was working on getting Howard Stern, all those sorts of things. And obviously that set us back. And then the printing press, all the factories went down. So we pulled it. And I would say right now, towards the end of summer, I guess, when everyone gets, right now we are discussing August, possibly September. So we'll see. Not sure yet.
The album that you did with Cherie goes back 10 years. And of course, every interviewer is going to say what took so long, and they're going to find out about that. But does she factor into your memoir much?
There was so much ground to cover. I don't really think I touched on it, even though, I've just been in so many musical projects for my career. And it's when you write a book, it's some kind of a timeline, obviously, but I don't feel like it made the book, But yeah, I had an amazing experience working on that record. And, it was kind of my idea to do it because, we got together. I can't even remember how it ended up happening, but Joan Jett was going to play in Orange County and running the Cherie somewhere, through a friend, a guitar player friend. And I said, Cherie, I'll put the band together for you. And I became like a musical director. We put this band together and we went out and opened for Joan. And, obviously we pulled out some Runaways tracks that Joan wasn't doing. And, we did like Queens of Noise. And then we started doing like some other covers like Roxy Roller, which made the record. And then we did a Bowie cover live that night. We had a magical show. We played about 8,000 people. And when we went on, typically it's an opener, the place is half full, people are getting drinks, but everyone was already in their seats. And when Cherie came out, she just looked great. Her moves, everything she had was still there from when she was 17 years old. She's, obviously older lady now, but still looks great and just has that thing that won't go away. Just natural movement on stage, natural front person, So we had this incredible show, and it was almost like a little bit out of body. It was magical. It just happened. You can watch some of it on YouTube. There's no professional videos of it. But anyway, the response was so great. There's Kenny Laguna and Joan and, of course, Blackheart Records and that, that family that's been around, Cherie and everyone for so long. That was sort of the obvious choice for the label. And then, we started working on songs and, obviously songs are pretty important when you're coming out with a statement like this. And at that particular time when we started doing the record, bands like Queens of Stone Age were making a lot of noise because, of course, in that genre. So I tried to make it, I produced the album at my house, my home studio. And we were looking for songs, just trying to find songs that felt a little bit punky, but somehow modern in their production, and then bringing in that retro aspect. Right? So we started doing that, and then we started adding guests, and we actually had a track from Velvet Revolver from some demos, and it was originally called Mr. X. Not Mr. X. What did we call it? Well, she calls it Mr. X. His other version was called Mrs. X. And anyway, the male vocal. But so it was written by Royston Langdon and a guy from a band called Space Hogs, and me and Slash and Duff, and that was sort of the thing that jumped off the record. I thought it fit really great for Cherie to sing about a male. We changed the title of Mr. X, and Cherie got in on that, making it hers. And then she had some songs that were really cool, and then we co-wrote a bunch of stuff. There's a really great song, one of my favorites, called Black Magic. And that's a really cool track. And then I called Billy Corgan, and he came over, and they wrote one of my favorite songs on the album, Blvds Of Splendor. I don't know if you've heard that one yet.
Yes, I have.
And that's a really cool sounding track. It reminds me of like an old Smashing Pumpkins, but with Cherie's voice on top of Billy Corgan's. I thought that came out really nice. And then, of course, the Queens of Noise track. I was like, well, let's get a bunch of our friends to come over and let's see who would do it. And I thought, right away, I thought of Brody Dahl from the group The Distillers, who was married to Josh Homme from Queens of Stone Age. And she's got that punky, cool, raspy kind of female vocal. So she came over and sang what part Joan would sing. And then there's a group out of Australia called the Veronicas. And I don't know if you know much about them, but they're huge in Australia, and they're great. They're twin sisters. And they came over and sang a bunch of really amazing harmonies all over the record, actually. And then we threw Juliette Lewis in there because she's just so fun. Natural Born Killers goes lead singer, And so so it was just in my backyard. I found a bunch of young musicians. We tried to keep it fresh, and obviously, it took a little while to come out. I could let those guys explain that to you. I was just basically happy I got done with the record, and then, when you can't release something, it's frustrating. It reminded me when I was younger, I would do a record for a label, and then it just wouldn't come out. You're like, what happened?
And was the first album that you ever produced for another artist the Poe record?
That was probably my biggest, I was always producing bands, like around LA, and I'd done a lot of movie scores. I don't know if you know that about me, but I did a lot of indie films. So I loved dabbling in that, and then I always thought, obviously as a drummer in a rock and roll band, when your run of, good gigs runs out, you could step into another hat. I felt that I had a sensibility for producing, a bit of a leader kind of thing, and watching other great producers that I work with. I said, well, I could do that. It's basically getting everyone in the room and make sure the vibe is up, and it was pretty good sonically. I knew what I wanted sound-wise. So I got involved with Poe kind of by accident too. I'd played on a record, the first album. And then in those days, it was the polar opposite of what it's like now. They needed a more rock version of a track called Angry Johnny. So I produced that song for Poe, and I mixed it with, call it my friend Chris Floridalgy to mix it. And in those days, he wasn't really mixing much rock. He was kind of more of a trip-hop artist. He had like a jazz feel, but we rocked it out a bit to get it on K-Rock. Long story short, we had a top 10 hit, and the record went platinum from this bonus track, if you will. And then after that, I produced a few more, and then I ended up jumping into production and produced some guys from Cypress Hill. I did that band Candlebox. just started producing stuff. And then I got pulled back into the cult. The cult got back together, and I jumped back into a band. So it kind of went in and out, you know what I mean? But I enjoy producing, and I love being in a room, and I'm always hearing stuff when I'm in a room and have ideas.
Well, about 2 years ago, I had the pleasure of seeing you live a couple of different times in different projects. There was the Hollywood Vampires show that you did in Brooklyn. There was the Kings of Chaos show that you did in New York City. And when I think of Matt Sorum, I don't know if I should be thinking about a producer, the guy who leads all-star bands, or what, because you also have all these nonprofit organizations that you've got going on, which I do want to ask you about. But how do you like to be thought of these days?
Well, I guess I'm sort of like the all-around guy. I mean, I want to kind of come out of the box as like, I'm the drummer because, from the rock band, you know what I mean? I feel like, when you get my book and my book comes out, the story sort of unfolds, and the story unfolds in Hollywood from a necessity to become a professional musician. And, in those days, in the 80s, when I was coming up in Hollywood, I moved there in the 70s, a lot of it was about the way you looked and what your hairstyle was. It was like you had some talent, and then you had an image, and then you had to pick what kind of music you wanted to play. Like, New Wave came through LA, the New Wave movement, early 80s. Then came, of course, the hair metal days. So it was a lot of navigating to kind of find, how you were going to get there. And in my book, obviously I was in Tori Amos's band. I discovered her early on. So I was in a completely different style of music in those days. I was more into Kate Bush and like Gabriel and electronic music. And then, rock and roll came along again and became a contender in the late 80s. And it was really like, as a drummer, I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump into the rock band. And going through all those things and then doing Velvet Revolver and having success there. After that, I was almost like, okay, now what? I'm not going to put another band together. So I guess I would consider myself an entrepreneur. I run Kings of Chaos. It's my own band. I'm the sole member, and I invite my friends. It's a one-man band with his friends, basically. So I guess I would consider myself an entrepreneur and a philanthropist because I really love doing, charity work. I have my own charity for kids. And I'm forward-thinking, entrepreneurial, philanthropist. And I like to do activism. I've spoken at Capitol a couple of times. That's fun. Kind of a cool rebellion, rock and roll rebellion, getting up there and telling people, no, you can't do that. Showing up. I went to Japan with Rick O'Berry from Dolphin Project, and we protested in Shibuya Square, and that was fun. It felt like, hey, man. And Rick's thing is, as an activist, I don't know if you know much about Rick O'Berry, but he's in a movie called The Cove. He's a world-renowned activist for dolphins, captivity of dolphins. And when you get that feeling like, oh, hey, I showed up, it's kind of a little bit of a drug. It's like, if you show up, if no one shows up, nothing's going to get done. So like, if you show up and, the news comes out, hey, I was in the New York Post, or Washington Post, I think, about me going to Taiji, and there I am. A big article goes across the wire, right, to all the, Associated Press and stuff, and like I showed up, and all of a sudden there's more of a conversation. And for me, it's not about me. It's about, bringing eyeballs to the cause. And, for instance, music and arts, they were going to cut that in LA completely. And no one would have showed up. They would have just pushed the bill through. And so I say to people, if you're going to consider yourself an activist, you have to get out there and, stand out there with signs or whatever you're going to do, because people do notice and they have to listen eventually. So I like doing that stuff.
And you definitely are helping get out word about Cherie's album as an activist. That kind of continues in that sense too, where it's a cause or an artist that you're really passionate about, and you're doing it by being the producer and the spokesperson.
Well, yeah, and you gotta remember, I've worked with so many great singers, but a lot of times, obviously, maybe other people believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And so I'm not saying Cherie didn't believe in herself, but I had to say, Cherie, you still got it, man. You got the gift. You don't have to, it's not even about age. You're like iconic. It's, I've worked with icons like Lemmy and Joan, and there's no age to Billy Gibbons. I don't look at Billy Gibbons and think he's an older guy. I don't care. He's just cool. And in my opinion, Cherie Currie's just cool. Didn't have to do it. It's nothing to do with her age and I like the story. Where's she been? What has she been doing? Right? She's been, dabbling in making songs and putting them up, but not really making a presentation that says, this is the record I wanted to make. I've been out chainsawing and fell out of a tree. You got that part of the story. I'm like, it's kind of great rock and roll shit to say, she's back and here's the record. And that's what I always say to her. If you're going to make a record, make a statement,
Being respectful of your time here. In closing, Matt, any last words for the kids?
The kids, I'm really involved in this whole thing, and I just want to get this thing over so we can get these kids back in school. And that's the greatest gift that we have is the children. As far as like everything that's happening, music is the great common bond between us, and we've been able to get through so much because of music. So, just take care, listen to music, keep the faith, keep rocking.
Paltrocast.